Welcome to Unbiased Sports, straight to the point, episode 2. We've got some fantastic guests today. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. We're going to be talking Gareth Southgate. Should he be sacked or shouldn't he? We're talking injuries and why there's been so many injuries. And I've got 2 Newcastle fans on today, which their club has been riddled with them. So I just want to get to that. And also the whole Spurs situation. Spurs are now apparently breaching. So we'll get into that. But to introduce my 2 fantastic guests, first of all, we got my boy from the other side, America, Chris from Top FC TV. Introduce yourself, brother.
What's happening? What's happening, everyone? Happy to be here, man. Happy to be with you, GP, on this nice channel that you just started. So happy to contribute, man. And, you know, we got a lot of football to talk, even though international break, but got a lot of football to talk. So.
And we have another Newcastle guest. I've done a couple of streams with this guy too, and I love the way he throws his arguments out there. Toontastic TV. Thank you for coming on, brother.
Evening, sir. Evening, sir. Thank you very, very much for the invite. It's a real privilege to be here. Chris, I've only recently started watching some of your shows as well. It's really
Nice.
delight to watch them. So I feel very privileged to be with you guys here today. Let's talk some football.
Yeah.
Come on. Let's get straight into it. Obviously, listen, I was setting up this stream. I was doing all this stuff, like all this background and that. I've never done it. I was like, it'll take me like 20 minutes. I was here for like 2 hours doing it. I was like, geez, this streaming stuff ain't easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, listen, straight into the football. I want to ask you guys, first of all, going into the Gareth Southgate one. I don't know how much football, English, like England football you watch, Chris, but
I do.
Gareth Southgate, man. Gareth Southgate, he is he the guy for England in the Euros? Is he the guy? I'll come to you first, Philip, brother. What do you think? Is he the guy for England? Would you keep him on for the Euros, or would you say let's get rid of him now and move forward with someone else?
While you was talking there, Giuseppe, I was thinking, I'm thinking international fans probably watch England more than English fans do at this stage. You know, is Gareth Southgate the guy for England? Great question. When I was preparing for this, I looked at his stats compared to Didier Deschamps. And someone might say, that's unfair. Well, if you want to win something, you're going to have to compete with the very best. And Southgate's win percent, kind of like points per game, is 1.67. And compare that to Didier Deschamps, who's 1.88 per match. That shows you the problem. And most of the time, we see England playing Albania and all the other teams. So how is he only getting 1.67 per game? Well, I know when he's getting thrashed 4-0 by Hungary. How about that? Then you look at the win rate. His one is 48%. Deschamps is 55%. I mean, if you want to be a manager, at any level of manager, you have to get beyond that percentage. That's Steve Bruce numbers for us in terms. That's even so it already shows you. So the only reason I think he's got as far as he's got is because the quality of players. So the players have managed to win the games or get the game to the stage they have, despite Gareth Southgate, rather than it being Gareth Southgate. I'm always a big, and I'll end it on this. I think I'm always a believer in a team reflects their manager or reflects their leader. And if England reflects Gareth Southgate, and we always say that they're safety first, they've got their seatbelt on, they got their shirts and ties tucked in correctly, and they're driving with both hands behind the wheel, and they're not doing much. Whereas if you look at France, there's flair, there's structure at the same time. There's going forwards, they're going backwards. Do you think they have any fear for England? No, because they look at the bench and they think, well, it's only Southgate, isn't it? So in terms of sacking Southgate, it's too late now. He's already at the church. The bridegroom's already at the church. He's ready to get married. So you're going to have to say no at the altar, essentially. And I think they've written this competition off already before they've started, to be honest.
Yeah, listen, I agree with everything you said, because to be honest, like I'm a believer that I don't seem to trust, like maybe you can find me an occasional manager or so, but I don't trust a manager that goes international and has never really done anything club level as a manager.
Yeah.
If you can't do it club level, that means that you're just not that good, and you've gone to the England job because it's or the international job because it's a bit easier. You don't have to deal with transfers. You don't need to deal with people have less ego when it comes to their country sometimes as well, you know.
Yeah.
But I look at this England team and how good it is, and even going back to the last Euros that England lost to Italy in the final, I was watching that as an Italian. I was watching that final, and I was kind of down the middle. I was kind of because I support both. Normally, for me, it's I want one of them to win. So when it was the final, everyone thought it was a win-win for me, but it wasn't, because whoever won, I couldn't really celebrate, because the second I celebrate either one, everyone's gonna be like, "You're a traitor to the other one."
Yeah.
But I watched that final, and after England scored that first goal, when it went in, I thought England's won this final. And within 10 minutes of watching the tactics after they went 1-0 up, I was like, England are losing this game.
Yes.
Because I know the way it are.
Yes.
And they let Italy grow into the game. And that's the problem with Gareth Southgate. He's got the players. For me, his selection of the players, that's atrocious anyway. We know he has his favourites, and he makes that obvious.
Right.
Because I'm sorry, like, there's several centre backs better than, in my opinion, better than Maguire. I don't always like to go into him, but like you from Newcastle, you can see a few Newcastle players that you think should be walking into it.
And I don't want to literally just a recent friendly. He started off with Henderson. We've already qualified. What are you doing playing Henderson? Why do you need to play Henderson? He did make the change like last 30, 40 minutes. And the thing is, with Henderson, we all know sideways merchant, essentially, and they wouldn't go through the middle. What happened when he put on Cole Palmer, and you then had Cole Palmer and Foden in the middle? England went right through the middle of Malta and scored their goals. Jeez. I wonder, why didn't you just do that? Why not just play them at the beginning? This is a game for you to express yourself. And you put on Henderson, so to be that level of risk averse is just detrimental to the team.
Yeah. Chris, your thoughts, mate. Your thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, Southgate has been working for England for 7 years now.
Yeah.
Now 7 years.
Yeah.
By the World Cup, it would be what, 9 years, 8 years, whatever. I mean, they've given them a long time for him to come up with something. If he would have won against Italy, you have to justify him staying on the job. But what he's done so far, this English team is just sour. I mean, you watch it; it doesn't give you any. You don't, they beat Italy not too long ago. That's a good win. I mean, but still doesn't convince you of anything. To be honest with you, I don't think I can sit here and say that the England is going to win the Euros. I don't think anybody can just say that with certainty. There's teams before you watched and you thought, man, there's nobody like City today in the Premier League. You can say, man, if they're good, they're going to win the Premier League. So I don't think that anybody can say that about England when it comes to the Euros or much less the World Cup. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like Toon Taxes were saying, I think that he's not going to get sacked. I don't think it's feasible now, but it should have been done a long time ago. I mean, he should have been out of the position just simply because you gave him a World Cup, you gave him a lot of years, and it didn't work out. It's not that you don't necessarily have to make bad decisions or the team lose every game for you to be sacked. Sometimes it just didn't work out. Because what I think is, when I look at England as one of the teams, well, they invented football, to say the least. So they won a World Cup. That's what they're looking for. They're not looking to qualify for the World Cup. They're not looking to qualify for the Euros. They're looking to win it. And if that doesn't happen, and you watch the games, and England is not a team that that makes people fall in love with them. I don't think Southgate has any fans whatsoever in English fans. I don't think they're ranting for Southgate to stay. You know what I'm saying? More than likely, it's the opposite. So, it doesn't make sense for him to continue. But at the end of the day, it looks like, it's going to be another World Cup or Euros that maybe if he loses or if they perform badly in the Euros, they probably would sack him. I could see that, and a lot of fans might want that. I don't know, but yeah, I just don't see. I don't see anything out of it. I mean, it's just a sour team again.
I think the rumor is that this is supposed to be his final tournament, and like talking in terms of like, I do wonder though, if they did want to get rid of Southgate, who do they go to? Because say, for instance, people keep speaking about Eddie Howe, but Eddie Howe loves managing Newcastle, and I think you kind of alluded to it earlier, Giuseppe, that when I look at the other teams, when I look at even whether it's, if you can call it smaller nations footballing wise, from Slovenia, for instance, I think they qualified recently and the crowds came out just cheering. I think it was Slovenia. And then if you look at the other teams, where even just France and whatnot, I kind of see pride in the players' faces and the managers. I think there was even rumors, for instance, Zidane was holding off joining the club in case he got the France job.
Yeah.
I don't see high top tier England managers making the same sacrifice for England. I think it's almost like this is the step before you retire almost, which is sad.
I do think England's a bit of a poison chalice. I do think that certain managers think that could be the end of their career if they go there and don't perform. Just to touch one thing on what Chris said, about beating Italy, and that's a good win. I don't see that as a great win in the qualifiers. As an Italian fan as well, they're not great. Italy have never been great in qualifiers, man. It's only when we get into the tournament, and when we buck England in the tournament. Yeah, when England and Italy play each other in the tournament, it's always Italy that's winning.
It's heritage.
And England does have the talent. And back to you, Philip, what you said about the manager. For me, I would personally try and get Graham Potter. I think he had a bad time at Chelsea. I don't think that was his fault, but I think his style of play, having the England players, I think he could get a tune out of that England squad. They've got the players. This England squad looks unreal right now. The level of talent and of the bench, it's crazy to me. What do you guys think?
But I think if they ask Eddie Howe, he'll take the job. I mean, I don't think he would say no.
No way.
I think he would.
I disagree. What now?
I think he would say no.
I think he would say. You would think he would say no.
No way.
I think he would say yes.
If you look at it this way for Eddie Howe, and I've compared him to, I said it to Giuseppe actually on our first stream. I look at, for instance, you compared Eddie Howe to Arteta. Eddie Howe's like that school kid who went to school in the ghetto and got an apprenticeship, and he worked his way up. You know how it was when he started with Tyndall. It was just him and Tyndall almost paying for the kits themselves, doing the scouting themselves, and he's worked his way up to where he's at Newcastle now. And it's literally a fairy tale story, and I think he's there to accomplish that. And I think there's a lot for him to do there. I think England takes away for that. It will just come for him at the wrong time. He's yet to I don't think he knows what his own ceiling is at the moment, and he's got the opportunity to do it now. He needs to see it in himself. Can I actually win something? Can I actually do something? And with he's in the position where you've got which very few managers get to. You are the first manager of a major takeover with major owners.
But and I don't. Of course, I don't want to make it a Newcastle thing, but I think that the owners. I'm not 100% sure that Eddie Howe is the owner's plan for Newcastle potentially winning a championship, and it pains me to think that way, because I appreciate Eddie Howe, but so that's why I think that he would probably take and I think he would take the English job, because it's also a matter of pride, man. When your national team comes, it may be you're
American, Chris, right? You're American.
Yeah.
You've still got you need to live in England for a little while. We've that national pride.
No, see, in that, and you got a point. You got a point. Actually, watch all kinds of English content, and the fans don't really. I mean, some of them say, I can't wait for the international break to be over so we can watch our clubs and all that stuff. A lot of people, I can't remember what. I think it was the Italy-England final that people were just like, I don't care if England win or not, and it's mind-boggling to me. I can't agree with that ever. I think the national team is above any club ever. Again, English football. Well, the English national team represents English football in its in its in its core, I guess you could say. And I mean, it's football in itself. And again, England invented football. So I'm a romantic guy when it comes to football. I like to me old football is better than new to me, but in a lot of ways. But what I'm trying to say is that it should mean more than what it actually means now. And yeah, to your point, maybe not a lot of managers are up for it. But if you ask international managers, foreign managers, they will take that job in a heartbeat.
Well, sorry, let me just put one thing in. The one thing I will have to say is you're talking with. I do think you're talking with that bit of American mindset, because I'll be honest, 90% of football fans, English football fans, will pick their club winning the Premier League over England winning the World Cup. That is just that is just the fact of it. Like, if you ask 90% of Newcastle fans, 90% of Arsenal fans, maybe not City fans because they've had so much glory, they might say, "Oh yeah, I'll take the England World Cup." But I guess, I bet if you ask them a treble or the World Cup, they'll pick the treble again. So like they'll always go club before country in England. And it's sad because I watch it with Italy and I see even the Napoli manager. What happened with the Napoli manager is Italy come calling, and the Napoli manager said to Napoli after winning the league, "I want to go." And this is the Italian pride thing. When Napoli were trying to say, "We're not going to let you go," well, Italy intervened. Italy, the country themselves, intervened and said, "He's coming to Italy. You ain't really got a choice about that." That's incredible. Crazy.
Yeah.
England, that don't work. It's not the same, as we haven't got that thing. But yeah, Philip, you were going to put in.
No, I was going to say, in terms of, I think Chris is right. So Eddie Howe was not the first manager. He was not the manager they wanted, because obviously they were Umari. And even Eddie Howe said, he knows that, and he said that if I was them, I would have chosen Umari. He wasn't the manager that they wanted, but he ended up being the manager that they needed. And his story and where he's at now, I don't know why there's people have put a cap over Eddie Howe. I've debated this with people before. They keep on, for instance, comparing him to Mark Hughes, and they in terms of a stopgap. And I always say that the only thing that's comparable between Eddie Howe and Mark Hughes is that they both got blonde hair and blue eyes. They haven't got the same approach to football. They haven't got the same strategies. They don't have the same ethos in and around the philosophy around football. They're totally different guys. And I think with Eddie Howe, he's really proven he's got untapped potential. What manager? Remember, Newcastle were, and as you know, Chris, we were 19 games where we didn't win anything. And people said that is, no team has ever done that. They're getting relegated, and we finished 11th. The next year, we finished in the Champions League. Money or not, people have failed with even less. So to me, I don't think he knows of himself what his own potential is, and I don't think the owners, and I think he suits the owners because we're so behind economically, behind Arsenal, for instance, in terms of our people doing FFP, our marketing, everything else like that. The owners are almost having to play catch up with Eddie Howe's success because they didn't plan to be in the Champions League this season. I don't believe they did. And so he's given them time in order to do that because he's just so far ahead. And so I just think I don't see them pushing him out, and I don't see himself being pulled away by England either at this stage. Yeah.
Go on, make it.
No, I was just going to say what Chris and what yourself, Unbiased Sport, were saying is that I think it ought to be that you put your nation before your club. Just to say that ought to be the standard. I believe in that. I'm a romantic in that, and I believe in that. However, here in England, it's not. And I'm not saying that I don't know what's in his mind. Maybe he does feel England calling, but
that's a massive job. That it still is a massive job. You know what I mean? It still is a job that I don't think many. To be honest with you, if you ask Ten Hag if he would take the England job, he would think about it. I guarantee.
To leave Man United, he'll take the Moldova job. I'm like,
well, I'm just saying, but I guarantee you, if anybody went to Pochettino, because actually Pochettino raced in a sense a lot of these guys Kane, a lot of these guys that they play for Spurs. When he was there, and a lot of people. I watched a lot of South American football as well, and a lot of people were talking about how he would, he in the sense, there's a rivalry between Argentinians and English people,
Yeah.
because of history and all that stuff. So they would criticize him because they felt like he was more English than Argentina, and so I know that it's well, of course, to Argentinians, the national team is everything and anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. So yeah, I agree with that. But still, is a massive job. I don't think that people would just say, oh no, don't even come asking for, don't even come offer the English job because I'll decline it. I don't think that would be, even though, again, I agree that English people don't think, that the English national team is more important than their clubs to a certain extent, because I'm a romantic, but I mean, if you ask me to pick between the English national team winning whatever, between Newcastle winning the Premier League, I mean, I think that Newcastle winning the Premier League would be a lot more historic than anything else. And of course, I'm not English, so the question would probably be, I don't know if the US would win the World Cup, even though that would be historic as well. But so yeah, I mean, when it comes to Southgate, though, coming back to the point, at the end of the day, talking about it realistically, I don't think he's going anywhere. And I think that the FA, they're just pretty comfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's where it lies.
I think Eddie Howe would be more likely to maybe take the England job for the next campaign, which would be in another like 3 years, 2.5 years, which would leave him at a point of he would be knowing if he can win the league.
Yeah, absolutely,
or
absolutely.
not by that time. So I think that's more likely. But of course, the England job, listen, it's always a massive job because it is a national team. It's a huge national team. And it's the same. It's kind of like that Tottenham job where it's like everyone has that fantasy of being the first guy to win them something big, like in years, Same with England. Whoever wins that World Cup or that Euros first will be an England legend, no doubt, like because of how long it has been since England have won anything of relevance, So, so literally, I think it is a big job. I think Eddie Howe would think about it, but I personally think he'd be crazy to take it right now. Like he's not. Listen, he's not. So, let's just say an example with what's going on with City and that. Say City got relegated next season, right at the end of this season. Well, I'm sorry, with the right spending, Newcastle have a shot of winning in the Premier League next season. The defensive record speaks for itself. I think Eddie Howe's been fantastic because I think no one thought he'd be anything like he has been. Yes, Newcastle have their flaws, but I think he's 10 times a manager of Southgate.
100%.
So I think he would bet on himself to do something at Liverpool. So I don't think Newcastle. So I don't think he'd take the job. But like going back to Southgate, for me, I'd sack him now. I generally, do you know why? Do you know why I do that? Because I think if you get a proper good manager in right now, you could have that new manager bounce in a competition with this team, get them gassed. Bellingham's on fire, Kane's on fire, Saka's on fire, Foden's are decent, but like you've got like players like Trippier on fire, even players like Dan Burn and that. Like you bring them into the team, for example, if it's Graham Potter that goes in, he knows Dan Burn really well. So like even players like this, you could get them right up for it, and you never know. They're good enough they've got the squad to win the competition, in my opinion. But yeah, so for me, I'm going to just ask you guys if you guys have both said you wouldn't sack him now.
No, I don't think they're going to sack him. I would.
Oh no, listen, I don't think they're going to sack him. I personally think that they're, as you said, they're comfortable right now. They're going to give him this last competition. If he don't do nothing, then he's gone. If he does do something, then he's staying. Of course, you've got to give. If he wins the Euros, you would have to give him. You'd have to, but that's it. You've got to win the Euros for me. You can't come runners up again. That's not good enough.
But isn't it sad that even if you were to win the Euros, we'll still be saying, I wish,
Yeah,
almost like I
because
wish I didn't win it.
that's funny
not to
because we
have
would
it.
believe that it's the players that have won it, like without
Right.
his I think his in-game management, and that sucks. Like I really do. But listen, I wanna go on to the next topic, which is a team that we all know well, Tottenham Hotspur. You know, I'm obviously got more of a rivalry there. You Newcastle fans, how do you see? I'd like to. How do you see Tottenham? Like, do
For
you
me,
dislike Tottenham, or is it just like they're just a team? Like,
yeah, for me, it's another Tuesday with Tottenham. I mean, only if anything, before for instance, the takeover over, there was a comparison. The only comparison between, for instance, Mike Ashley and Levy was that obviously they took two different routes to in regards to FFP. Levy chose to invest into his club and make and therefore raise the level of FFP, whereas Mike Ashley chose to strip it bare and do it that way. And I remember my initial thoughts were, I wish I had Levy. And so I think their only fault was that and I don't know why this is. I think I listened to Tottenham fans about it, was that they sacked Pochettino too early. I think they were on the precipice of greatness. I know that they had a bad year that year, but I think they also had they built their stadium and they didn't make the transfers. And I think sacking Pochettino too early, they then went into a spiral, and then they thought they could get that winning mentality by purchasing that DNA from other clubs, buying Chelsea players or managers, going to Arsenal and stuff like that. But they actually had it before they were Pochettino, and they stopped themselves from happening. But in terms of any rivalry with Spurs from my end, not to the degree.
I don't have a rivalry with them. I think that they have no right to be in this top 6 debate. I mean, or if they do, then we have a top 7 with Newcastle up there. Because Tottenham, what have they won? They won more than Newcastle in some sense of the debate. But at the end of the day, it's not even like that. You know what I mean? It's not. There's no difference. And in the same talk, if we had Arsenal at Northeast, we would be up there, no doubt, because Spurs have been milking that Arteta. I mean, not Arteta. Arsenal titty for centuries. So if Arsenal were in the South, nobody would talk about Spurs. So that's just the way I think about it.
Yeah, I 100%. Listen, Spurs fans hate when I say this, listen. I don't like Spurs. I'm an Arsenal fan. I can't like Spurs. I try and be unbiased with them when I speak, but it's hard sometimes. I do agree when you say that Spurs would not be as big as they are right now if it wasn't for Arsenal being as big as we are.
Nobody would talk about them. I mean, they're as big as I think they have more coverage and people talk about them more because of this constant Arsenal thing, and of course Arsenal fans have fed into it, born into it, so they have to always mouth them off. But that helps them as well to stay in the loop of things. But if you tell me, I'm not gonna listen to a Spurs fan tell me, I'm bigger than Newcastle. That's not gonna happen. Like, you know what I mean? Shut the hell up. You know what I'm
Listen,
saying? So.
yeah, listen. I think that Spurs. I don't know. Spurs are in that top 6 debate because they've got a worldwide fan base. It's their fan base and stuff that puts them in there, and they've been around for a while. They've always played decent football, so I feel like that's sort of put them in there. But
they've been Champions League. I won't disrespect them at all. In terms of, they've been Champions League 10 years straight. I think at least 8 or 9 times in the last 10 years, and they've made some memories for folks. But in terms of winning, it's not there. And so I the rumors have it, and Chris probably would know this as well, that one of the people that was vividly against the Newcastle takeover was Levy, and some of the reasons why we're having all these votes like we had today is Levy and obviously Klopp and stuff. But I think Levy more or less because he knows that if Newcastle win something this year or the next year,
if they win the Carabao Cup,
God help us.
Carabao Cup. I'm not even talking about any major trophy.
Yeah.
Levy is the takeover in itself. He is a takeover. I mean, he's just taking over. He's a dictator for time, for years. And you know what I mean? So what are we talking about? Just because our owners dress different and they're from the Middle East doesn't make Western owners any better or different. You know what I mean? So it just doesn't make any sense to me. But
on Spurs, there's obviously these things come out today. The breaking news today was obviously that they're being looked at for potential financial breaches and stuff. Now this seems like this is the new fad. This is the new thing that's going on. Like everyone's sitting there going, "Oh crap, it could be me next. Could be me next." Like I'm starting to sit here going, "Oh god, it could be Arsenal next."
Have you ever watched Training Day?
Yeah.
You see, you know what scene I'm talking about when Denzel's surrounded by all of them because I got cases and all, yo.
That's the
Premier League right now.
It literally is. Obviously, it's due to the Defoe going to Portsmouth, and it's obviously being looked at because I think that's the season that Portsmouth got relegated and won the FA Cup, and I think it's the same season that Tottenham won the Carabao, so there's actual winning stuff going on there. That same season, Luton got a 10-point deduction for similar things. So that is what's the talking point right now. If they're guilty, I'm not sure. But I'm not sure. Listen, this FFP stuff and this financial breaching, I don't know where they sit with it. I don't know how bad it is compared to like the Everton one, but they've set the precedent with the Everton one now of a 10-point deduction. Yeah. So do you guys think Spurs are guilty? Do you think they're going to get a deduction of points, or do you think it would just be a fine? What do you guys think about it? Because listen, if Spurs get a 10-point deduction this season, it's going to, they might not get top 4 this season, you know? So it'll be huge loss for them.
Especially this season that they, basically made a sort of a comeback to be relevant. Last season was not good. So yeah, you would have all hell break loose over there in North London. But I mean, to be honest with you, I don't agree with this stuff. I don't at all. I mean, and I don't really. You're talking about 2008. I mean, a lot of David Levy was there, so I mean, again, the adds to the dictatorship point earlier, but at the end of the day, I just don't agree with it. With 2023, we're going back over a decade to look at this stuff. I think that they should be able to find this stuff like a year, 2 years max, but so many years later, you know what I mean? It almost it's I don't think it's even fair, to these clubs. To Everton, I think we also went back, I don't know how many years for the Everton thing. And is it fair for these players? Is it fair for this club? They just got a new ownership. I don't think that these owners were a part of that whatever happened situation. Well, actually, I think that's because they haven't managed their money well, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And the City thing with the Chelsea thing, I think that goes back as well. It's really confusing. I don't know. I'm not a financial guy, so when it comes to this stuff, but it just doesn't look right when we have to go. This happened in 2008. Defoe has been retired, and I don't know. It just doesn't. It doesn't look.
I think with this, obviously, if you've cheated, you've cheated. Yeah. Like it is what it is.
But what is going to happen?
Like, because in a sense, you got to look at it like this: if I burgled your house and stole all your jewelry that like was family possessions and stuff, and then you would find out that it was me 10 years later, you wouldn't say, "Oh well, it's 10 years ago, so maybe not charge him, maybe just like take it."
Well, there's a statute of limitations to only murder doesn't have a statute of limitation here in the United States, but like, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, what would you do like if City won the treble last season and their stuff happened? We got to talk about City. We can't talk about Spurs because they haven't won anything. So City. Take away the Champions League because whatever happens 10 years ago, it just doesn't make sense.
I'm not.
Yeah. So go on.
I'm not a fan of the taking titles away. Maybe you could take the title away from the year that breach has happened. Like, I'm not too fussed on the taking stuff away. I think if you're going to deduct, listen, the problem is they've done it to Everton now. So now Everton are there saying, you've got to investigate this, you've got to investigate that. If something comes out and they're not investigating it, well, Everton are going to be on the phone to the FA or whoever it is saying, listen, we got our 10-point deduction, so we want this to be dealt with now. So that's what the problem is now.
Yeah, I think with this, and it's funny enough because I did a show yesterday. I had to do a little bit of research from different places, and I had a Man City fan on as well. So he really broke down the case. But just going quickly to Tottenham, and in terms of cheating, for instance, I think I heard Terry from Football Terrace mentioning is when people hear breach, we automatically think, they've cheated, they found a conniving way to get around it, when sometimes it just means failed. Sometimes you've just failed. And I'm just reading as you guys are talking, skimming through the details, and it's I'm sure someone's going to correct me, but it just seems to me that they failed in this instance. I don't see what unfair, like, disadvantage that Tottenham were trying to get, in terms of, obviously they try to get the player, but it seems to me like a process wasn't fulfilled. To me, this looks like failure in terms of them getting the transfer over, and rather than them believing that the foe is going to be that season-defining striker that's going to bring us title. Well, they got them a League Cup, but
Well, exactly though. Like, so if the foe was just a bench player, and now all of a sudden the whole team gets their title taken or whatever happened. Now the people that did the wrong are not going to get punished. Who you're punishing is the manager now, the players now. You know what I'm saying? It's not fair. Some of these players weren't even playing professional football.
Yeah. And different in terms of actually cheating or failing to breach, there's different conditions as to what that consequence is. I'm just reading. I probably think they're probably going to get a financial breach. And again, Everton, Man City, Chelsea, all these cases are different. They are literally comparing apples and oranges. Everton, for instance, Everton are like, people keep on saying they just tipped over by 20 million. It wasn't 20 million, it was 300 million. And then the Premier League 3 years ago tried to input safeguards in place to help them, so that they didn't get consequenced by the FFP. They took off 180 million and said, look, a lot of these costs were from COVID. You paid for a stadium, you invested for your women, so they took off 180 million, and they still had 120 million to go. Everton still wanted to purchase players and wanted to be active in the transfer market. So Premier League said, okay, as long as you can prove that your transactions, you're still going to at least earn a profit, you're not going to get worse, we'll continue doing it. Everton said fine, but Everton didn't listen, and they still spent recklessly. This is why, if you read the independent review from the Premier League, from the independent commission, they said that despite these safeguards that they've put in place for Everton, they still spent recklessly. Hence why they didn't just get a financial consequence, but they got a 10-point deduction too. And because the commission saw it as the Premier League tried to help you, and you still didn't want to listen. Yeah. And so that's why they got what they got. Man City is a whole different case, and obviously Everton pled guilty from the beginning. Man City is, I'm not going to go into entire, I'll be in terms of what they were saying, but I do see that people keep on saying 115. And from what the Man City fan was saying to me is essentially boils down to, in terms of like serious kind it comes down to 6. But what they're saying is that these particular 6 charges, like for instance, Brown, kind of underhand deals to Mancini, like he went to do some training somewhere else for a company or whatnot, and got paid millions, and somehow they think that was like a roundabout way of paying him, so he could pay for Man City and things like that. But that wasn't the case, and so it's 6 charges times 8-9 years that they've gone back. But apparently 3 of those years there was no FFP. So there's a lot going on. Obviously, Man City are refusing to cooperate, but Man City are looking at it as, this isn't the court of law. We don't have to cooperate. However, and although that's true, it's still not helpful at the same time. I think also that they're looking for the process itself can go as long as they want it to go, in terms of there is no limitation, unlike UEFA. And so even UEFA, so for some of these cases, so some of these charges, UEFA had already charged them. If you remember, they got the they got a transfer ban and they got like 30 million, and then Man City appealed it and they ended up being 10 million. So for some of these things, they're already charged for. And so the Premier League has come back and said, no, we still want to, we still want to charge you for the rest, for something else. So I think that's where the tension is between Man City and the Premier League, and that's happening. But it doesn't. I think when fans are saying they're going to get stripped and I think that's what people want to happen, and there's that narrative. And God help us if Man City get proven obviously not guilty, and people who haven't, like myself, but I'm learning from what the Man City was found. If he's right, haven't read into this, you haven't taken the time, people are going to be saying that the Premier League's corrupt, this and that. I'm not saying that there isn't, but if you don't read into these cases, you end up thinking that Man City is the same as Everton, that Everton's the same as Chelsea, when all these things are different. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I agree. And I like when I read over the Tottenham stuff as well, I personally think that it should be more of it does seem like it'll be more of a financial, a fine rather than a point deduction or ban of any sort. I think that would be fair as well. It don't seem like it was a major, like as you said, it was more like a foul rather than a cheating thing.
Yeah.
But for me, the Man City one as well, I've said it from the start, right? Listen, we don't really know, and anyone who claims to really know, don't really know.
No.
Because at the end of the day, people are like, well, if they've got nothing to hide, why wouldn't they just show them the books? But then I'll tell someone this. If you know you're innocent and a police officer pulls you over and says, we want to search your car.
Right.
You might be like, no. Right. You know you haven't got nothing in there, but you're like, no. Why are you stopping me? Why are you just coming on? Why are you just trying to search my car for no reason? No, I don't want to give you the right to search my car. And that might seem, but it's a pride thing. It's like you've come here out of nowhere, just trying to nitpick, trying to find something that we haven't done. So no, we ain't gonna make it easy for you. If you want to do this, we're gonna play hardball. So that could be what it is with Man City. So just because they're not, that's what I'll say to people. Just because they're not showing their books, and that does not make them guilty. Because otherwise, that'd be obviously then that's just so obvious that they're guilty. Listen, they might be guilty of 1 or 2 charges in there, but I don't think they're guilty of 115.
So they're not showing their books to the Premier League specifically, but they are audited by the biggest, I think, financial, is it KPMG, something like that? So they regularly audited like everybody else's. They're just saying to the Premier League specifically, we're not showing you our books. That's what it is. Like you said, the police officer stops you for no reason, essentially, and wants to search you. You're like, no. So that's what it is, and they're in their right to do that. Because if they bend over every time the Premier League says jump and you jump, it's going to be a continuous process. So that's what they're doing. That's how they're acting.
I think you're bang on with that. Listen, we're 40 minutes into the show already. I don't want it to go too much longer for you guys. I don't want to keep you here all night. But I want to go on to the last topic, right? I'll come to you first, Chris. All these injuries that have been happening in football over the past couple years is crazy. And this season, I think it has been nuts. We're not even a quarter of the way into the season, and we're seeing ACLs go everywhere. We've seen Gavi the other night for Spain; his ACL's gone, and it's so sad when you see a young player. It's sad for any player, but when you see a really talented young player, you just think. As an Arsenal fan, I've seen it with Abu Diaby. I've seen it with Eduardo. I've seen it with Jack Wilshere. Some of these young talents that look like they could be the next big thing. These injuries can throw them off and make them not get to the heights. And that could happen with someone like Gavi. The way he plays, that could be something that plays a part for the rest of his future. What do you guys think it is? Chris, you first. What do you think it is? That is the reason for all these injuries.
Well, I mean, it's just a lot of games, a lot of minutes. I mean, I think that's the bottom line. Pressure has a lot to do with it, but at the end of the day, if you're going to play, if you want to get paid and play for a big club, that's just going to come with it. And certainly, in a lot of ways, good managers know how to handle pressure on young players. If you talk about the Gavi situation specifically with Barcelona, they play their young guys a lot, and you have that issue. Actually, Barcelona has had that issue. There's a reason why Ansu Fati is playing for Brighton right now, because he hasn't fulfilled the hopes of everybody in Barcelona because he's played so many minutes. He's not even 25, 24 yet. So, but it seems like he's played for 10 years. You know what I mean? Because he's been playing since 16. The same thing with this Yamal kid, who is, again, the same thing. You know, going to be the next star of football, but you just don't know. He might get hurt, like Ansu Fati, like Gavi, like Pedri. You know, all these guys. You got, but certainly the main thing here is for everybody, not just young guys, because you know Odegaard is a situation as well. And you mentioned you go back Wilshere, Diaby. I mean, you going back certain years. So I think it's gotten worse now that we just play a lot of minutes, a lot of games. I love international football, so I'm never going to say they need to stop, you know, going to the countries and playing, because ultimately, you know, the World Cup and everything else it's big. It's big in football. It's really important as well. So I think you just have to lower the amount of games. I mean, and everybody has to give a little. You know what I mean? The Premier League has to give a little. All the leagues in the world, we play about the same amount of weeks. Certain leagues more, a week more, 2 weeks more, a week less. But at the end of the day, it's just about the same. So, and also in, you know, international games, you know, friendly games, etc. Everybody has to give in a little to shorten the amount of games, shorten the amount of minutes to kind of ease this injury crisis. But you know, that's the way I look at it. I'm not a guy that's going to say, you know, no international games whatsoever. Let them just play for their club. I don't believe in that. You know what I mean? So that's the way I think about it.
Yeah, listen, I think that the games, there is a lot of games. I think they're congested. You get some
Yeah.
months where you've got all these games and stuff. I've started to believe that there's something to do with maybe boots, or I know that might sound like a theory, but like the boots, the new style of boots, the new like style of pitches and stuff that seem to have these players doing their ACL, because it seems to be like this one injury that's recurring. And I think like you're seeing it a lot more now. The ACL used to be a bit of a rarer one, like, you know, like obviously snapping someone's leg like a Eduardo challenge, that's just a filthy challenge at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
you're seeing players just pull up out of controlling the ball and trying to turn and stuff. So I wonder if it has anything to do with that. And Philip, I'm going to come to you now. Do you think any of that could play a factor? Do you think that there's this notion of the VAR, the stoppages? That's what people are now trying to say. I don't believe that personally, but they're saying these stoppages, a few minutes of VAR, could be the cause, even though for years there's been time wasting and people on the floor for a few minutes and that, and people have said it's always been a thing. But what's your thoughts on this injuries and stuff?
Yeah, folks hate VAR. I mean, if stoppages were the reason for injuries, I mean, boxers have to rest for a minute between rounds. You don't see them putting up arm muscles every time they fight. So, you know what? I think it's a little bit of everything. I was again, and this theory is of mine. I forgot the gentleman's name. I would have mentioned him, but he thinks his theory was that it's more to do with the style of football, i.e. in the intensity. So he says, for instance, in terms of injuries, when people are saying minutes and the amount of games you're playing, he's saying if you look at the overall table, the injuries actually spread fairly evenly across all teams. And I looked it up to check it out. For instance, Bournemouth, they've got 7 injuries. So do Brentford. So Bournemouth have got calf problems for Ryan Fredericks. Tyler Adams, hamstring. Darren Randolph, unknown. Alex Scott, key player, knee. Max Aarons, hamstring. Brentford, De Silva, again, his hamstring. Rico Henry, who was it? Yeah, Rico Henry, ACL. All the stuff, you know. Nathan Collins, Aaron Hickey, hamstring. So it's spreading along the Premier League. So his theory that he's coming up with is to do more of the intensity. For instance, like how we play at Newcastle, high, pressing high, defending. We can do it as a unit. It's great football. It's highly intensive, and so I said to him, and by a sport, you might be able to answer this because I think Arsenal are not too dissimilar in their game with Man City. And the follow-up question to that was, I'm probably going to ask about, you know, we know that Arteta has changed his style of football, and this might, wondered if you thought this might be the reason. So I said to him, if the intensive style of football is the reason for it, is the way to combat it essentially is to be able to control and dictate games. So, i.e., Man City can pass you to death. and Arsenal, when they want to, can do the same thing. Because I asked the Man City fan last year, or when you guys are in total control, I mean, how was it injuries? Yeah, because we're pretty good. Because we didn't need to run. We just passed you to death. So we had fairly reduced number of injuries. I don't know if on Bias Sport you can say the same thing for Arsenal. And if it is the case, could this be possibly one of the reasons why Arteta has again tweaked the style a little bit more? Because I understand it's a bit more slow, or a lot more trying to get a lot more control. So, but yeah, that's what's the working theory.
Yeah. To answer it, first of all, big up Salve in the chat.
Big up, sir.
But yeah, I actually quite not like that theory, but because I don't like people getting injured, but I quite understand that theory.
Yeah.
Because even as you say, Arsenal controlling the game. Yeah, like when you're controlling the game and you're passing and you've got 80% possession, you're not always making them crazy runs, them bursts like a counter-attacking team will do, and etc. Less likely to get hamstrings. You see, like the Tottenham game when Van der Ven pulled up, that was him having to sprint back because he had the high line and he was putting all into it and stuff like that. And I agree in the sense of, if you look up a lot of Arsenal's injuries this season, quite a few of them have been happening. Seems to be happening like in training and stuff, where players probably are a bit more intense because they're trying to prove to the manager why they should be in the team. You're playing each other. It ain't really a match, so you're not really doing the same, maybe controlling it because you want it to flow a bit quicker and stuff. So I think that's a good point. And if you look at Man City over the past few years, they've not really had any, like, they never really get many injuries. You've got their players like De Bruyne. He's just an injury-prone player. Like, he'd get injured in any system, any team. You look at players like Rodri, never gets injured. I don't really ever see Kyle Walker getting injured. Diaz getting injured. Haaland gets them little knocks. He's out for a game. Mahrez never used to really get injured. Gundogan never really used to get injured. You have their Stones and people like this that are just injury-prone players, and I just think you can't stop that. They've just got weaknesses. But yeah, man, I think when you're under the cosh, like for example, a Newcastle, like there's a lot of games where you're because you're so defensively resilient and you soak up pressure. There is that intensity in your defending, stretching your leg out, running back to make that final tackle, stuff like that. And I feel like you see like them sort of teams seem to be picking up more injuries. But I don't know what you think about that, Chris.
I'm smiling on Bias Sport because we're not a defensive team. It's only when we play Arsenal, I think, that we get you. I think you see us when we play Arsenal, because you guys are really good with the ball. But typically, we're not a defensive team. I think Arsenal, Man City's earn our respect essentially, and that could happen. And going back to that game, for instance, just briefly, the only reason you guys were beginning to grow in control, the only reason you lost control and it turned into a fight was because Havertz did that wild challenge, and you did it to the wrong team at the wrong ground. If you're going to have a fight of any team, it's not going to be Newcastle. So I'll just say on that. But yeah, but typically we're a very high pressing team. But it's just credit to you guys. It's just credit to you guys that you're very, very good on the ball.
I think fair. Like, I need to watch a bit more Newcastle. I'll be honest, I haven't actually watched much. I watched a bit more Newcastle last season, and I think you were a bit more probably defensive last season.
Well, last season, this season we were attacking more.
Where you didn't have as much going forward and stuff. But yeah, Chris, what's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on that theory of the play style? Because I also agree with that. Like back in the day, they like you watch the games and they were a lot slower back in the day. But back in the days, they used to let the referees used to let a lot go. You know what I mean? They used to kill Maradona every time he would dribble, and so you know what I mean. The style of play, it could be an issue. I don't know if I necessarily buy that. I think it's just the amount of minutes that these guys are playing. Sorry, Chris. Just to put in that thing that you just said though, about Maradona back in the day, but I feel like nowadays it's less like contact injuries and it's more like muscular injuries. which
Well, yeah.
never really result in contact. Like you don't
Yeah.
really see ankle breaks and stuff like that much.
Yeah,
But
and I think that's why I relate to it being a lot of minutes and a lot of games. At the end of the day, I think that's the issue. And these guys, when they vacation, they don't do it for long. It's a week. You know what I mean? What I'm trying to say is, like, I don't think they have a lot of time off, to be honest with you. And and now everything is monetized, in the Premier League and all leagues, not just the Premier League, to be honest. Everybody wants to make money off of this. Then the players have to be on the pitch. If you look at it from that perspective, everybody benefits from it, because at the end of the day, if we don't have a Premier League, I don't know how many shows we can do. What are we going to talk about? So at the end of I try to look at both things from everybody's perspective as well, because I do believe that in this sense we're talking about the Premier League, but I refer to all football in general. I mean, they also, you have to understand them for trying to play these guys. Honestly, the friendly matches, international matches, they make a lot of money with that as well. When Argentina goes and plays Qatar in the Middle East, you think they just love to go there and play? No, they make it because they get paid for it. So and it doesn't. I think that when you just make it about money, then it becomes an issue, 100%. But it has to be a balance. And then again, to me, to be able to fix this, I think that everybody has to give in a little. So so there's not a lot of stress on these guys, and maybe that'll work, maybe not. You just go from there. But because I heard an idea of resting players that happens a lot in the NBA here in the United States. I don't think that's going to fly in football. I mean, I just it doesn't really, fans don't really like it here, because when you go and pay your ticket to see LeBron James or Michael Jordan in the 90s, you want to see them. If you go watch Haaland, Bournemouth is playing City, you go to watch Haaland and he's being rested. I don't think that's gonna go well in football at all. If you just on purpose bench a guy because you just not, because you don't want him to get hurt. I think it happens to a certain extent, but I don't think just doing it all the time would work in football. But so that's why I think that, if you shorten the amount of games, it could be beneficial. You know what I mean? So
where would you just to finish up for you two? Where would you take the games away from then? What games would you?
Everybody has to.
Yeah,
just how many games
would you? But what would you do? Like, would you scrap a cup? Would you scrap the Carabao Cup? Would you
Well, it just
elongate the league?
I mean, it's a lot tougher than It's easier said than done, of course. I like you have the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. You know what I'm saying? Maybe one of them has to go. Why? I don't know. It's difficult if you take away Premier League games, then you have to have less teams. Because if not, then it's going to be unbalanced and weird. But I mean, international games as well, the friendly matches have to be shorter. I think the travel as well has a lot to do with it. But then again, if you're in Europe, it really doesn't make a difference. But if you have to go to South America to play, that's an issue. Even though I take that in consideration, but I don't think that's because a lot of players complain about that, but they have private planes. A lot of them use private planes, even if they don't own the actual plane. So it's not the same as before, where players were actually flying commercial to go back to their country. So even in the sense, to be honest with you, it's hard to understand the problem, because now everything is a lot easier than before, and so it has to. And I'm sure there's statistics about this, and so I think everything has to be taken in consideration to be able to find a fix. But again, I think it's easier said than done. But to me, it's just the amount of games, honestly.
Yeah. Listen, I hear that, and we're gonna wrap up now. We're hitting an hour. It was a fantastic talk with you both. I really do like both your thoughts on football and that, and I think
had a great time. Thank you.
Yeah. I think you both have like amazing thoughts and that on the topics as well, and I think we're all kind of like on that same wavelength of like the belief of how football is now and stuff. So listen, thanks for coming on, guys.
Thank you for the
This is
invite.
going
Sir.
on. This is going up as a video as well. So everyone watching the video, please make sure to like, share, subscribe. Subscribe to both of these two. You'll be seeing more of them. You'll be seeing me and these guys on other platforms as well. Don't worry, there's going to be a lot of us guys gathering around. So make sure to subscribe. The links will be in the description. All that good stuff. Thanks for having me, guys. Listen, you got the mic. If you want to say something, say it now.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it. And of course, you know, just support the channel, subscribe, hit the like button, helps us a lot. So just, yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate. Absolutely. Appreciate the invite. Unbiased Sport. Your work rate is impeccable. So you definitely deserve a lot more subscribers and likes and people coming into shares. Come on, guys. You need to support him. And yeah, please do come if you're in all things Newcastle United. I literally just started like less than a month ago, guys. So come and see me at the beginning of my journey. It'd be great to have you all, Newcastle and football fans in general. It'd be great to have you all share your views and your ideas about anything related to football. It'd be great to have you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Unbiased Sport, for the privilege, and Chris has been really, really good to share the stage. I was gonna say stage, mic, podcast with you. Yeah, it's great.
I'll be in contact with you, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Listen, that's it. Listen, it's great having two Newcastle fans on here as well. To wrap it up,
I think you're the first person ever to have that. I think this is groundbreaking for me. I'm like,
listen, I like Newcastle right now. Yeah, obviously that we had that little beef. I actually do believe that Arsenal. Like, I don't think I'm gonna like you guys in a couple seasons. It's gonna be
serious. It's gonna be tense.
I just want to end it on this. I know I've said everyone likes, but I just want to end it on this point. I actually think Arsenal and Newcastle are building a little bit of a rivalry. I feel it when we play each other. I generally do. I don't know how you guys feel when you play other teams, but since you knocked us out of the Champions League spot that season, I feel like there's something there. But we'll listen.
Yeah, well, Chris, I don't know about you. I feel like it's a privilege to even be considered a rival. There was a time nearly 2 years ago where people wouldn't even have. We're going to Newcastle as 3 points. What's for lunch? So it's great to be even in this position, to be honest.
That is true. But in the 90s, you know what top four, not even top 6, top 7 that you guys invented. Top 4 was United, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Newcastle United.
Newcastle.
So you know, keep that in mind, man. You know,
literally, guys. Thank you for coming on. Yep, Newcastle is striving right now. You lot are really coming up the table. Yeah. So everyone, like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Links are in the description. As I said, Unbiased Sports. Peace.